Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host, Nathaniel. I'm so pleased to have a special guest with us today, someone who has had a profound journey of transformation and has gone through some really profound pain and managed to reframe it and is creating a whole movement based on this. Alex, I understand that you have been, top of your game in some really high level corporate environments and in marketing and advertisement. And uh, that journey was abruptly ended when you experienced what's called complex regional pain syndrome, I believe, also known as the suicide disease, like that level of pain. And you've taken that illness and and made it into a gift, and now you're really helping people to reframe pain. We're really pleased to have you on the show. So thanks for coming, and I'd love for you to introduce us to you and to let us know your story and what has your journey been all about? It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So where to begin? Yeah, it's been a messy journey, that's
Mm.
for sure. So yeah, I was born in the UK, hence the funny accent. I've lived and worked all over the world. Again, funny accent. So yeah, I worked in advertising and worked pretty hard and pushed myself through through that sort of career path of he who works hard gets promoted. um and uh and really I did everything by the book, everything that I thought I was supposed to do, to meet those conventional norms that we live in.
Mm.
And so yeah, for about 35-ish years I worked in advertising and running some big old bits of business. So the last sort of great big thing I worked on was General Motors. So I ran the global advertising media for General Motors, about $2 billion. So that was a pretty big one. But beyond that, things like P&G I ran in Asia, and Coca-Cola out of Asia Pacific. And yeah, my career was good. And you know, I was struggling with some wellness issues, which I kind of put down to, stress and what have you, and I ignored them. I've ignored many signals and signs in my life.
Mm.
I got struck by lightning when I was 12
Wow.
years old.
Okay.
That was the first, anybody that knows about, shamanism and things like that, like that's
Hmm.
a pretty big life sign.
Yeah. You're the
Again,
third
a sort
person
of
I've met, actually.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I literally struck. I was walking the dogs, got struck by lightning through my left shoulder in
Okay.
Florida as a
Okay.
kid.
Wow.
And anyway, so yeah, worked really hard, and then progressively, this pain that I had in what started in my left hand. It wasn't a terribly crazy deal, but then I was involved in a car accident. And the EMS were actually called to what they believed was a fatality. So I'd been hit side on by somebody coming off a highway ramp. They didn't realize there was a traffic light at the end of the ramp. They went
Mm.
blowing through it, hit me about 50-ish miles an hour side
Wow.
on, and picked up my car, threw it in the air, rolled a few times, and hit a utility pole. And the car was upside down. The EMS came, they pulled me out. And look, my thumbs were out of their joints, but that was it. Like, thank God I was okay. Um, and I out of that injury, I needed to have my thumb joints repaired. Very routine, everyday sort of procedure. We started with my left hand because I'm right-handed. And I lived on my own at that point in time. This was 2012. And so we're like, let's do my left because I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to manage this one-handed thing, getting ready for work, and putting the shirt on and the tie on and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Did that hand, and it was a weird one. I'll go quickly through this because it was like every week I was back at the hand surgeon.
Mm.
What should have been a surgery, go back for a checkup a couple of times, and wham, be done, turned into me there probably 30 times. Every week I was there complaining. it's worse, it's worse, it's worse. He eventually sort of passed me off to another hand surgeon. It's like, I don't know what's going on.
Mm.
It shouldn't be like that. All of the imaging studies show that everything's fine. Pushed me off to somebody else, another hand surgeon, same thing. Don't know what's going on. And I kind of felt like I was loopy, losing
Mm.
my mind, because I kept being told there's nothing wrong. Um, Out of that, I continued once in a while, and this pain's not good. This was like, it was painful. And I kept occasionally going to see another kind of, my primary care doctor might say, go see a rheumatologist, this, that, and the other. By which time my left hand had now started hurting on the opposite, it now bilaterally moved over to my right hand. I couldn't figure that out. Again, go make a complaint about it, get sent to a different type of a doctor, get told again there's nothing wrong. And about every year to 18 months, a different part of my body would start hurting
Mm.
in all the same sort of telltale signs, which is very common in CRPS. So it then became my left shoulder, then it was my right shoulder, then it was just various different parts of my body, my feet, my knees,
Mm.
my whatever. Um, so that happened for a long time, and I found myself in a situation where at work I was having to fake pain. I was having to fake not being in pain,
Mm.
which is very taxing and quite
Mhm.
exhausting. People think that you're miserable, that you're cross,
Mhm.
that you're a grumpy, pissed off person, and it's really hard. I would then come home in the evening and basically pass out because I was just like exhausted from the work and the hiding from it. I mean, they were both equally kind of hard.
Mm.
Um, so that all happened. I then decided that I would take kind of what I thought would be a lesser pressure job. So I kind of thought, well, what can I do that sort of keeps me in the business? I decided I'd go work for a regional agency group, again, here in the Michigan area, and see if I could really help this sort of smaller, type of business up their game a little bit, which we were able to do. But again, it was really, really hard. Um, Without going into a ton of detail about them, I then um, I then went to see, through a relationship. I told a neighbor that I had this pain thing, and this neighbor was friends with a very senior, well, CEO of a hospital group, and shouldn't have been this way because for 10 years I'd been searching for, treatment. So 10 years in, the CEO of this hospital group says, well, let me see if I can help your friend get you in to see the head of our pain clinic. So through relationships, which again, it shouldn't really be that way, but that's
Yeah.
what happened. I managed to get to see this fairly well-renowned pain guy, the head of the pain clinic, and he brought two of his intern doctors in with him, and they gave me about a 45-minute workover, poking and prodding and pulling and twisting and all the things. And they then went away and had a little 10-minute conference themselves, came back, and they're like, we each kind of like figured out what we thought was going on, and then we sort of had a little conference and we talked about it, and they were like, all three of us came up with exactly the same diagnosis. We're absolutely certain this is what's going on. There's some things that we can do to now prove this, because there isn't, there's not a blood test for this illness. Um, Anyway, they came back. They said 333 complex regional pain syndrome. It was triggered by, this was an illness that was within me. It had been triggered by the fact that I had this car accident, the stress load on my body and everything else. So that's what it was. Then they did a couple of other kind of like tests on me, and they figured out absolutely for certain that's what's going on. Um, you know, I felt like this moment of relief because after 10 years, I finally, or it was about 11 years at that point, I finally felt like I had a diagnosis. I'm like, okay,
Mm,
so I'm not crazy after all.
mhm,
There is a thing, there is this thing, and I didn't know much about this, but I'm like, well, when there's a thing, it's normally fixable. So, okay,
mhm,
guys, what can we do? And the answer is, well, not very much. We can treat pain the best we can, but it's probably going to get worse.
mm,
So I kind of came home after that, did my own little bit of self-discovery, found a treatment at one of the world famous clinics. You'll probably figure out which one. So I uh, I went in and I told the guy that I was working for what was going on with me, and I really, really thought long and hard about, do I disclose an illness? Do I disclose in this world, being a
mm,
50-something-year-old guy,
mm,
do I disclose having an illness? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. This is good. They're a good bunch of people. I disclose an illness, saying I would need maybe 10 days at this clinic to do this research trial. And I think it was 22 hours later, I received an email saying that my services were no longer needed in the
wow.
business. That was a little bit of a gut punch. Now, we could
Yeah.
all say that's not legal and that's not allowed and all that other stuff, and there's laws to protect you. Yeah, not really. As much as we try, it's really hard to prove some of this stuff, and so I found myself not only sick, but effectively out of work with a company that I trusted.
Mm,
I felt like really defeated. I
mm,
just felt lost, completely lost, and didn't know what to do.
I hear you.
I keep the chair behind me there when I'm doing these recordings because it always reminds me I spent a lot of time in that chair.
Mm,
Um, and I remember my sleep is still not very good. I don't sleep very well. I'm often up in the middle of the night and will sit and read and what have you. And I was sitting in that chair one day and I'm like, everything that I've worked so hard for is really for nothing now.
mm,
Yeah, nice home and nice yard and my hobbies, I can't do X and I can't do Y, and I'm told this is going to get worse. Like, I don't want this.
mhm,
I don't want, like, literally living in pain for 24 hours a day is not something that I can look forward to. And so I thought to myself, I want to be done. I've had a good run, and but if it's only really going to get worse, I'm miserable and I'm unhappy and I'm a burden. And I really did think I was a major burden to my now wife. And But I didn't want to leave this trail of like destruction behind me. I got two older kids over in the UK, a wife here, and I just didn't want to leave a big ugly mess. So I thought, in my somewhat irrational, but I thought I was being rational and grown up and stuff. Like, if I can find a counselor who understands my pain, who can just sort of help me work through the process, because I have a lot of like brain fog with this. Imagine being in your worst sort of pain, trying to like
mhm,
think through it it's hard sometimes. And
mhm,
so I'm like, if I can talk to somebody who understands my pain and understands this illness well enough to know that it is a real thing and it's not necessarily going to get a whole lot better. And no one told me it could get better in any way. They wouldn't try and talk me out of this thing. And so at 6:30 in the morning, I got on my computer here, and I did this search, little Google search for pain counselor. And the weirdest, strangest, most divine thing sort of happened, which was these two very simple words, almost like they were at the center of the screen, and it was almost like they became sort of like 3D. And it was
mm,
like it was the only thing I could see
mm,
was
mm,
these two words, pain and coach. And I'd spent 10, 12 years reading everything I could read, researching everything that I could research, trying to understand what was going on with me. And never had I seen these two very simple words sat next to each other. Pain coach,
mm,
like, what the hell's a pain coach? Like, really, what's a pain coach?
Mm.
And I'm like, and it was so sort of like profound in the way that I couldn't really, everything else was like a blur around me except for these words. It was
Mm.
like, I know I'm supposed to like look at this thing. And so I clicked on this link that took me to a business's name and a phone number. And I'm like, I'm just going to call and leave a message. It was 6:40 in the morning by this time. I called the number and I figured I'd just leave a voicemail message. Hey, give me a call, blah, blah, blah. This is my story. Well, somebody answered at 6:40 in the morning. And I'm like, and it was like such a shock that I just burst into tears. I
Mm.
don't really understand what came over me,
Mm.
but I just started crying.
Mm.
And this woman, Jenny, answered the phone. And she said, okay, I'm assuming you're calling because you're living in pain. That's what it sounds like. I'm like, yeah, choking my words out.
Mm.
And just let me explain what pain coaching is. So she spent, I don't know, next 10, 15 minutes talking to me about pain and pain coaching and what it's all about and how it works and, how it's not about diagnosing or anything else. It's really about, you know, seeing you as the whole self and
Mm.
going on a journey with you. Basically, somebody walking beside you on your journey of pain and really seeing how we can break it down into its pieces and parts and what sort of what I now call like these little micro interventions that you can do that help the experience of pain soften. So she explained all of that. She got me to see my coach. So I signed up right away. I got to see my coach within 24 hours. I don't
Mm.
think it was the same day, but it seemed like it.
Mm.
It was like it was certainly by the very next morning. My coach, Jareen, he was like, love her to bits. A very good friend of mine today. I still work with her. Um, so the very first time I met Jareen, she said to me, um, she said, uh, just tell me what's going on. Just what's going on. And for about 58 minutes of an hour meeting, I just talked to her. I just
Mm.
told her what was going on. I told her from the beginning all the way through to that moment. I got done with my call and we were going to be meeting in a couple more days' time. And it occurred to me after I got done that it was the first time in, by this point, 12 years, that somebody had actually asked me, other than my partner, of course,
Mm.
what was going like what was going on. Because every medical appointment that I'd ever had was a rushed, 3 minutes with a physician or a
Mm.
specialist. You might get 10 minutes where you get to speak like a sentence and then they diagnose you and off they go. Somebody was actually listening, and like you are right now, like you reading someone, you frown or you smile or your eyes smile or what, like these again these little expressions, and I could tell that she was interested. I get
Mm.
goosebumps every time I say that too, because I knew she was.
Mm.
She was paying attention and she might make the occasional note and she was validating my feelings through these little expressions that she was making. And I could tell that she was sad and she herself has chronic pain.
Mm.
Most good pain coaches have a lived experience of pain themselves, which what makes them great coaches. Um, and so yeah, she validated me and I felt seen and I felt heard and I felt cared about, which was huge. It was just huge. Then 2 days later, I'm pretty sure it was 2 days later, I met with her again and she said to me, do you understand pain? And I'm like, yeah, of course I understand pain. I gotta live with it all the time. Like, no, no. Do you know what's going, like, do you know, like, really what's going on? And I thought for a minute, I'm like, well, I read all these books and I guess I kind of do, but I don't know, maybe I don't. So why don't you tell me? And she basically gave me this 40-minute lesson of pain neuroscience education where I got to understand, how, you receive a signal and then your brain decides if it's going to send you this pain signal and it looks to memories and it looks to your environment and it basically does this determination of whether you're going to feel a tickle or a pinch or a burn or a whatever. And so she explained this, but at the end of it, she explained to me that there are multiple studies like this. She'd already started to figure me out. So, multiple studies that when you give somebody a lesson on pain neuroscience education, when that person starts to understand the mechanics of pain, the experience almost always starts to soften.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So just by understanding it, you stop catastrophizing. Like I've been told I've been given all these tests over time, like maybe you have MS or I got one doctor who like very coldly said, well, have you had an HIV test recently? I mean, like, and your heart like panics.
Yeah.
These little things of these crazy things that might kill you. And so she explains this, and I'm like, okay, so this isn't going to kill. So pain's not going to kill me.
Mm.
Um, and so on goes my experience for many, many months. Okay. There's a learning that there was literally an epiphany that I had in every single appointment that I had with Jareen, where I learned something, whether it was a tip, a trick, something about myself, the negative self-talk that I have of myself. I'm a burden. I'm no good. I bring no value to my household anymore.
Mm.
I didn't really recognize that I was doing that, but the brain understands when you say you're a burden, it's a self-fulfilling, like your brain starts to believe these things and the pain experience increases and all of these crazy things happen. And so I kept learning and learning and learning. And it came to a point. So I write in these great big fat kind of like 365 pages I came to find out in these books. I got hundreds of them. Well, I got like 30 of them maybe. But I fill out, when I was meeting with Jareen, she always knew that I was writing. She's like, do you have access to the notebook from the first kind of time that we met? And I'm like, yeah, I think I do. And I grabbed it. So let's go to the first couple of pages. This was 6 months in.
Mm.
And so I went to the first couple of pages and I go to the front and like, let's just read a couple of those pages of your notes. And my handwriting's atrocious, but I could see kind of like these really sharp words where I'm talking about my experience, where I'm effing and blinding and I'm like just the doodles that I've got, and I'm explaining to kind of like the underlines and the exclamation points and all these things on the page. And we have a little bit of a dialogue about it. And she's like, do you see the change to how you now just like I'm talking about pain at this point in time as I'm referring it to as discomfort instead of pain.
Mm.
I've sort of I've like sanded and buffed off the sharp edges of the corner of
Mhm.
my relationship with pain to some degree. And over that course of 6 months, I learned to meditate. And it was brutal and it was hard. And you've told me you're a meditator. And I tried before, but I stumbled across this famous meditator, this guy David G, who you may or may not know. David G has this program, 40 Days of Transformation, which I would listen to, and it starts with 10 minutes and then 15 and winds its way up to 35-minute, 45-minute meditations. And I finally I cracked the code. And what I found out over this course of the 6 months is there's no one silver bullet, but by understanding the pain neuroscience and doing my meditation, which typically I could bring my pain experience down by about 1 point, by doing little exercises like before I met with you today, I will sit here and I put my feet on the floor, my bare feet on the floor, and I visualize this place and I do some breathing and I ground myself. And there's 1,000 different things that we can do. There's like incense that's burning, which reminds me of something, which when I start stacking these different things, your wife in the intro of us meeting, I think, talks about getting a warm drink. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea because my hands hurt, my hands are cold, and I can warm my hands. And that's a nice sensory experience. And it's just, it, I started but the fact is, I learned a lot of little mini micro skills along
Mm.
the way. Well, that was all brilliant. And then I had an epiphany. I once I discovered that, I came into my office and I thought I was going to write a blog about this for no good reason other than I wanted to share this experience with the world, um, for myself, for my family, for people that might read my little post, that I'd learned that when I start stacking these things, that it was sort of like this thing that I'd learned. I started to feel better. In the process of doing that, when I figured I'd probably post this to some of these pain groups and whatever, it's not, there's no big silver bullet, da 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 da. It's like, but if you can find these five things and put them together and whatever. And I started to write, and what I thought would be a few hundred words became kind of like 3 or 4 thousand words. And in the process of me thinking, I'm going to do this and I'm going to post this to the CRPS group, and maybe it will help one person. If it helps one person, I remember sitting here thinking, if me doing this helps one person, that's a great thing.
Mhm.
As I was doing this, I felt my pain literally. It was like I kind of like looked to the corner and like, oh my god, my pain, like my body is somebody else. Like my pain is dropping away here as I'm doing
Mm.
this work. As I'm talking about healing, my pain is falling away. And so I went
Interesting.
to tell my wife. I ran across the house and I went to tell her, and we had dinner or something. Later that night, my pain came back with my pain was really, really high later that night. And I'm like, I'm going to come and I'm going to write something really intentional about healing, the process of healing. And in the process of doing that, again, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I'm doing something that's really intentional about healing myself or helping others, my pain starts to fall away. Like, okay, I'm onto something here. I then speak to Jareen, tell her about this. I said, Jareen, I'm really interested in this pain coaching thing you do. Can you tell me more about it? Can you tell me, where do you study and what do you do and all this kind of good stuff? And I said, can you point me in the direction of people that train people to become pain coaches? I'd love to have a chat with them. So I do that. I get hold of this guy Paul, and I'm chatting with Paul, and he asks me about me and my career, and I ask him about his business and this, that, and the other. And it turns out that there could be this reciprocal relationship here where he has a need for my skills. I clearly get a benefit from helping people in this space. So we try and do this for a little bit. And I'm working in this space, and it's really, really helpful. And it's really helpful to the business, and it's really helpful to me and my pain experience. And I'm sitting on my desk for 12 hours a day and feeling really good about this. And, a little bit of time goes by, and all of a sudden I'm like CEO of this pain coaching business, which has kind of come full circle at that point, because a really good pain coach isn't particularly good necessarily at running a business. But
Mm.
that's what I've been doing for, a few decades. So that all then started to help. And I started to learn more and more and more about pain neuroscience and, what we can do to help quieten the noise of
Mm.
complicated pain.
Mm.
And I've come to the point of really understanding, so much about this. At the same time, I've become so incredibly frustrated at the white coats and the profession. I don't blame them. It's such a busy business that they have to move so quickly that they don't really have the time to sit and explain that, having a dysregulated central nervous system is one of the greatest things we can do is regulate our nervous
Mm.
systems. Something, again, if you meditate, you know all about this. That when your body is all amped up, um, you know, that is only ever going to it's only ever going to make that experience of pain worse. And so regulating my nervous system was something that I learned to do, and I do it I do it instinctively throughout my day now. Whenever I'm feeling, anxious or my pain is rising. But there's something that that industry never tells you to do. Never once was I ever told that I should be doing things like that. And so I've sort of like made it my mini mission to really help folks that are living in complicated pain, giving them the tools that they can easily access themselves to, one, start to regulate their nervous system, and two, start to, stack these other skills and these other habits. And so what I thought I would do right away is I wrote this little book, and this is not like, I want to give this thing away to whoever I can. This book was written really to give the skills that I have learned to the back, because I could not find anything when I was looking for
Mm,
my own pain. I found books that either spoke to me like I was a 3-year-old, that they were so basic that there was no real good from them, or they were written in such a way that they were so sort of scientific, and you needed a PhD to really understand them. And so what I knew that I needed is, one, I needed to understand what was going on in my body. Like, what is pain? Explain it to me. So I explain in this book, the first third of it is sort of like, what is pain? How's it created? Um, then the second third of the book, I talk about some of these things that you can do, that any person without training can access some of these skills. And so I give some recipes there. It's like a cookbook, some recipes of things that you can do, and when you figure out one of them works, then try stacking them, stack these things together. And then there's the last third is sort of some resources. So things, for example, when I'm having a really bad pain situation, the one thing I can't do is like access my intellectual brain and
mm,
get to the point of, what am I going to do now? So what I developed was, two little things in there. One is, well, let's understand what your triggers are. So what things can happen that are going to make you worse? So for me, um, I found out that, loud, unexpected noises. So you imagine a waiter in a restaurant drops a tray, like, being startled for me is a bit of a trigger, et cetera, et cetera. So we identify what our triggers are. That's one thing we do. The other one is when you have a flare up, what is your response plan? And we're going to stick it inside your kitchen cabinet, or wherever you want that thing. Literally, mine's in my kitchen cabinet, and I've got it as a photo in a
mm.
folder on my phone, which is, I then know that when X happens, all I need to do is to remember to look at my phone, or to go to the kitchen cabinet, and I look at that, and it's like, do this, then do this, then do this. That's all I got to do. I just need to go to that. I've done that. Okay, I've meditated. Now I got to go do this. Done. Boom, boom. So those are the sorts of things that are in the resources part of this book. And again, I wrote it to give it away, because this is the basic sort of information that we would hope that somebody that's, got this pain, whether it's a known diagnosis or an unknown diagnosis, this is the sort of information we want to be giving people.
Mhm.
And so that's part of my mission, and that's what I've been out there doing, is sort of like pointing people in the direction to get their hands on that kind of stuff. So that's sort of like, this is where I am on my mission right now. So we've got the pain coaching business. I'm looking at expanding and growing this now. I got a few things in the works as we go right now. But yeah, that's it. I know I've been talking. You asked me one simple
Oh,
question. I've
oh,
rambled on.
that's great. No, I think you've had a very profound journey, Alex, and you have a lot to share. I mean, you certainly are, in my eyes, a writer. I mean, the fact that you write so voluminously about your experience, and you record everything, and now you have such an amazing I would say an amazing, not a mini mission. It's an amazing mission, and writing is one of the ways that you can really, disseminate and share your journey to help people. And like you said, even just helping one person, it's no small thing when someone is going through chronic pain. And we know very well as a collective that our modern medical complex is not at all good at dealing with any chronic illness. They're good at patching people together, but it is a sick care industry. It is not a pain care. If anything, I
100%.
right, I lost one of my favorite musical artists, Tom Petty, to pain.
Yeah.
I got to see him in one of his last shows, and I am quite neurodivergent, and I tend to avoid like loud uh, sound environments as well. And I'm glad I went to go see a show, but that he played the whole show, I would have never guessed with like a broken hip. So he was taking
Mm.
painkillers, and I think this is what a lot of people are doing in one way or another to ease the sensation of pain.
Yeah.
And I can relate to you in a lot of ways. I grew up with a lot of intense migraines, so I know pain quite well, and I had a very strong aversion to taking any kind of pill to remedy this. So I feel like that's really was my first teacher of meditation, was learning how to go into sensation and find stillness there. And I agree with you. Like my journey of holistic health has been about stacking all kinds of skills, learning about grounding, learning about. I understand too. You're an energy healer practitioner. You do Reiki, and you have some shamanistic training. So I'd love to hear more about that. But I agree with you. There's so many holistic ways that we can transmute pain, and I love that you found a gift in it. Like you didn't become a victim of it. You found a way, and it's easy to feel like a victim when this is going on 24 hours a day, pain. And I feel like I am a very sensitive body, so if I'm eating not the right kind of foods, I get pains all over too. And so I can relate. I don't think to the same intensity, but I feel like it is not even a mini mission, Alex, if you help one person to transmute.
Yeah.
And there are some resources I'd love to share with you more. But before because I've met some really wonderful practitioners, I think that would add to your tool belt, so to speak.
Mm.
So I'd love to share some of those resources with you as well. Let's. I'd like to hear more about your now you work with people like, and maybe
Yeah.
for people who don't know, can you share a little bit about like the healing arts from your perspective? Like what is Reiki, and what is
Yeah.
shamanism? Like that might be a weird thing for some people that don't know about it.
Yeah, look, for me, I don't know, so many things started to happen to me at the same time when I started to find this heal when I was when I guess it was around the time that these words sort of jumped out. Like it's like they came to me. It was like, hang on, something more profound is going on here.
Hmm.
Uh, and so having a basic belief in that and
Mm.
believing that I'm being somehow more divinely guided here.
Yeah.
Okay. I just took a leap that maybe that's what was going on. Okay. I figured there was no harm in that.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the worst thing that can happen? These
Yeah.
words got spoken to me, and by following that direction, um, good things started to happen. Then I read a book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment,
Yeah.
which was an interesting, like it's a story really of his life, but what this book, the premise is, he basically surrendered and whatever happened, he would do. And I'm like, well, I wonder what will happen if anything that sort of comes by me, I just do. So that's what I started. I started doing that for a hot minute, and that got me to Reiki. I'm like, oh, I'm standing outside of like a Reiki building. I literally, that's what happened to me. I'm standing outside of a Reiki building, and um, and I got this other weird message at the same time. And I'm like, oh, I think I'm just being told that I should, like, I'm literally, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I knocked on the door, went in, I took a Reiki, I had Reiki, and while I was receiving the Reiki, I was like in a meditative state, and I got a very clear download of again, I don't want to sound like a complete, nutcase, but I had this sort of like very clear message spoken to me
Hmm. Hmm.
about that light and healing
Mm.
is something that I'm supposed to be doing, that
Yeah.
I'm listening, that I'm on the right path. And so I continue to receive Reiki fairly regularly.
Mm.
And in one of my meditations, I was told, rather, I heard that I would be invited to become a Reiki practitioner. And when that happens, I should surrender to it.
Mm.
And literally the very next day, my Reiki person, who was a Reiki master and a Reiki teacher, invited me to train. I mean, it was just completely weird and random how it came up,
Hmm.
and the timing was such. I'm like, I got to do this. So I started doing it, and I then started to do Reiki on myself, where again, it's taking universal energy
Yep.
and it's directing it to yourself or to others, and that's what I started to do. And again, a bit like meditation, when I do Reiki on myself, or if I'm lucky enough to receive it from someone else, I can bring my sensation of pain down. It literally happens. I
Mm.
can feel my pain ease. Um, the thing that became most like powerful and interesting to me is as I was learning Reiki, uh, Lauren, my Reiki master, would have uh, people with pain and all sorts of ailments come in, and we would practice with them. And I could always, without fail, I can identify exactly where their pain was.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
could feel my hands literally buzzing and tingling.
Yeah.
Um, and that for me is it's weird because my primary pain is in my hands, and that feeling of the buzzing from somebody else's pain feels good to my hands. It's a weird
Mm.
thing.
Mm.
So when I'm now feeling someone, I can feel the buzzing in my fingers right now for some reason. Um, when I'm doing that with someone, somebody else's pain starts to feel good to me. Now
Mm.
there's something in that.
Hmm.
Um, and so anyway, so I learned to do this. I can do it on myself. I've done it remotely with someone that's got migraines. All sorts of like
Yeah.
really wild things. And then through that, I met this lady Felicia, who's a shaman, I've spent a lot of time studying with her. We've explored my pain. I've gone in and we've had conversations with my pain.
Mm.
Really understanding, what is the source of the pain and what is it that I'm supposed to be doing with it. And one of the clearest messages that I have received is that this is about servitude.
Hmm.
That when I am in service to others, that I am here to help and to give.
Mm.
And it's just so incredibly profound that when I am doing things in service of others, it can be as simple as me. I was talking with somebody recently. They had been guided to have a potentially devastating. I won't say what it is. Medical procedure done. And he's a young person, and so I'm spending time talking to them about how they can manage their pain in a way that they don't have to undergo this procedure.
Mm.
Having such an incredibly deep conversation with somebody that's in so much torturous pain, these are hard conversations to have, but
Yeah.
um, they're important,
Yeah.
and they are healing. They are healing for both of us. I mean, the reason for me pain coaching is such an incredible thing is it's a really reciprocal relationship.
Yeah.
Probably 80% of pain coaches that I've come across are living with complicated pain. And if it's not them, it's somebody right next to them in their life that has an issue with pain, right? They're doing it for somebody
Yeah.
else. And it's such an incredibly reciprocal relationship because if you're sitting there talking to somebody about how they might help soothe and heal their own pain, inevitably you're helping yourself at the same time by having the conversation
Hmm.
or practicing something. So I don't know, like for me, when I can, if I can take these somewhat spiritual um, elements of the things that I've learned, and then I
Hmm.
start to, for me, I stack them on top of some of these more scientific things. I
Yeah.
don't really care, spiritual, scientific. For me, if it works, it works, and I get validated by that all the time. My
Hmm.
validation is if it works for me or if it works for other people. Um, you know, giving Reiki to somebody after we've had a conversation about complicated pain. I mean, it comes down to the other person being willing and open and, interested in it. But it's amazing to me how open, pain does something really interesting to people.
Hmm.
It cracks you wide open. It
Yeah.
really, truly cracks you wide open. And, I have found that a very large proportion of folks that live with complicated pain have sort of had this, sort of profound spiritual thing sort of happen to them.
Yeah.
And, you said a little while ago, folks tend to then splinter off into two paths. It's either victim and, the victimhood mentality. And I hate seeing it. It makes me really sad to see
Hmm.
because I truly believe that there is an opportunity for everybody to heal to some degree.
Hmm.
You know, but you'll either go that path or you'll go a path where there is some spiritual understanding to this. And if you
Yeah.
can start to understand, what is the message in this? What is the message in this pain? What is what
It's a
really
teacher,
what
right?
is it?
It's a
What is the
teacher.
teacher? What is the
Yeah.
teacher telling you? And um, and for me, anybody that I have met that has been able to um, open themselves up to that message,
Yeah.
they will and do get better. Now, I'm not saying
Yeah.
pain free. I've never said pain free. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think I'll ever be pain free.
Mm.
I don't know. Somebody says to me, "Does the cold weather make you worse?" I don't know. I try
Hmm.
not to think of it like that.
Yeah.
I try
Yeah.
and think of it, well, okay, my hands are hurting today. What's going like why? And why? I'm not thinking that it's cold outside. I'm thinking, well,
Mm.
what message is in this? What message is in
Mm.
this discomfort today?
Mm.
I don't know.
It's really interesting. I
Yeah,
got to say, Alex, your origin story sounds like a cross between Doctor Strange and Eckhart
yeah.
Tolle. And
It's
Eckhart
funny.
Tolle also reached to a point where he was going to take his own life, and that led to his
Yeah,
awakening. And just with your hands, Doctor Strange, I mean, he became,
yeah,
became one of the coolest modern heroes we see, right?
yeah,
But I, I, I
yeah,
I think that, I know there is maybe because we live in such a hyper mental and quote unquote scientific society. I feel like we are thankfully in an age where that bridge between spirituality and science for those who are more open and at least agnostic in their considerations. And I think that all the top scientists are, but there is the dogmatic religion of
yeah,
materialism present in our society, and I think that comes
yeah,
down to like seeing ourselves as separate, seeing the body as this mechanism, and if something's wrong, cut it out, and it's the body truly is a truth barometer, right? Like it tells us, it tells us the truth in all kinds of ways, when something's off. And like for you're saying, your pain literally told you that it's pointing you towards service, and here you are expanding a mission to help people who are in pain. And also you pointed out some really important things at the beginning of your story. I've been in corporate environments as well, and I know there's so many high achievers who wear stress like a badge, like it's
Yeah.
and stress to me is usually covering up some kind of fear, and we're encouraged to just stomach more and more and more, and and just to take the more we can take, the better. But it often leads to dire consequences in one situation or another until people start listening to the things. And so thankfully, you're following your unique dharma, your path in life, and here to serve and help people. It's really valuable, right? So I appreciate you doing that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And look, I recognize, look, I am at the beginning of I'm at the beginning of my journey still. I
Mm,
know I am. So I'm just starting to figure this out. Now,
yeah.
um, I can see how I can help some of these institutions like Pain Coach Academy. So I'm happy to support uh, if I've sort of opened myself up to help organizations like that. So, hey, you're an organization, you're trying to help people feel better in one way or another. Chronic illness, chronic pain, it's all ultimately the same, by the way.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't mean, diabetes is the same as having chronic pain, but the dysregulation and all of the noise that surrounds it, we can manage a lot of it in the same sort of way.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
opening myself up to help
Interesting.
organizations in general ways. Okay, so that's one thing I'm doing. But the other thing that I think it has become really clear to me recently is when you look at the source of so much chronic illness, it is dysregulation. And then when you start to look at what's happened in the last 100 years, okay, we've gone through the Industrial Revolution, we've gone through the Technological Revolution, one and two. We're
Hmm.
now entering this other revolution, this AI revolution right now,
Hmm.
which is going to be the fastest of, so we're going to see the most amounts of change in the next 10 years than
Hmm.
we probably saw in the last 100 years, by the way.
Yeah.
And all of those things have changed our behaviors in such an incredible way. In 100 years, our biology has not changed.
Hmm.
Our,
Hmm.
our physiology, our biology still behaves like we're hunter gatherers
Hmm.
potentially being chased by a tiger.
Hmm.
That's what our body is still behaving like. We haven't had time to evolve
Yeah.
because these things have happened so quickly. And so when we're living stress like a badge of honor,
Hmm.
it's literally going to kill you. It
Hmm.
is going to kill you. We're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be in that flight and fight, that fight and flight state for minutes at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And a caveman, a hunter like that would find himself in that place for 3 minutes and then rest
Yeah.
until absolute recovery.
Hmm.
Okay, we're not doing that. We're living in states of fight and flight for hours, days, weeks
Hmm.
on end.
Yeah.
And that, absolutely, I am certain of it, is the source. I believe it's the source of my chronic illness, which is
Yeah.
why I got ill. I was fighting an illness, keeping it sort of under control just, and then I have a car accident
Hmm.
that literally was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Um, and it just collapsed my entire system. It was
Hmm.
always there. It just collapsed it. So for me now, the big lesson that I've got is slow it down.
Hmm.
Slow everything down.
Yeah.
Slow it down, get myself to a point of rest. I still feel incredibly guilty, taking breaks
Hmm.
and resting, but we've been so programmed
Yeah.
to behave like this.
Yes.
We've got to change. We like for me, the great big message is change. We've got to
Yeah.
change the way we're living. And so one of the missions that I am on, and I believe that I'm going to pursue is helping folks really understand regulation,
Hmm.
because I don't think, like, yes, you get there's apps that talk about how you regulate
Hmm.
yourself and everything else, but I don't think we really understand the why.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start making folks really aware of the why, how we've become so chronically dysregulated,
Mm.
and find ways, figure out the ways that we can naturally always. You shouldn't have to get sick to figure this out. Um, so I think there's an opportunity for that. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know where this is all going. I just know that there's some really cool things that we can do.
I appreciate that willingness to leap in the unknown. I also have had some pretty profound experiences where I felt like the divine just like gave me this, narrowed my vision. It actually occurred here in Ottawa. I was living on the other end of town and felt an impulse to go to a bookstore because I just finished one of Neil Donald Walsh's books on conversations with God, and
Hmm.
I knew that he had one other in the series. And I've always been like, when we first started talking, on a quest to understand the truth. And I was inspired by this question in my early 20s of what would our world look like where we all did what we loved and had access to the abundance of our world, which I could see in just the contemplation of a single seed. And I spent a lot of time, looking at patterns in nature and contemplating, from a scientific and mathematical lens, like balance and space and equilibrium and light, and
Hmm.
all that led to this pretty, looking back, transformative experience where I was asked that question. And then almost a few moments later, a being of light appeared to me in the woods, and
Hmm.
on a path I was heading back home. And fast forward about uh, 10 years and a bit after that, I was serving Indigenous seniors at a local health access center here, and I was impulsed to go to this book. And I knew who that being was when he had appeared, but because I was so out of the kind of any kind of religious or even spiritual life, like I grew up in a very secular family, hardworking family. My dad's self-employed cabinet maker, and did a lot of work on the land, logging and building things, and so I didn't really have the frame, and I didn't really know exactly what all of this meant, that this experience happened to me. But when I was at this bookstore, that same funnel experience with the pain coach stood out to me, and my hand just reached out. All I could see was this one book on the bookshelf, and it's funny. It brought me back to that moment when you talked
Hmm.
about your story, and I pulled it out, and it called Christ Returns Reveals Startling Truth. And on the back there was no author or anything, and all it said was Christ rejects religious dogma. And it got me really interested because I knew the being who had appeared to me and was Christ, but also I was rejected from the church as a baby because my mom had previously been married, and I was out of the norm. And so for a long time, Alex, I can relate. I didn't really tell anybody about these
Hmm.
experiences because I felt so like I felt weird, like that was having some of these awakening experiences, and there was other things too. But I got it. The reason I'm bringing this book up to you because I feel like I would highly recommend, if you do feel moved, to read his
Yeah.
letters to us, and I will send them to you. I'll send them as a gift if you ever feel inclined, because he talks about how he was able to evoke the healing in others, and he talks a lot about illness and pain and how they are when our vibrational states in particular parts of our body are out of alignment with respect to that divine intelligence that you have
Hmm.
referred to. And he explains how we can recover perfect health and protection and growth and nutrition and all those first principles of divine. And the Christ letters to me are a profound source of knowledge that will be off-putting to some, just because of all of the, whether you're coming from a scientific lens, like that's just hokey, or if you're coming from a religious lens, it challenges a lot of the beliefs that have been put on. To me, the human being who has given us the most profound pattern of realization when we truly awaken what is possible. And he told us this, right? He said, "You too can do these things and more." And I feel
Hmm.
like we're in an interesting time where we are igniting within one another. We're listening to one another's stories, and I feel like the only way we can actually bring into this, what he calls us to do, is to come together from all walks of life and to co-create an era of love and peace. So I feel like the Christ consciousness that's returning is actually coming from a community sense. And so many of us have had these kind of out of the box journeys that have led us to finding one another. And I see your mission, and to me, Heaven on Mother Earth is our acronym for home, right? And I believe that we can all live on Earth in a state of heaven, and that truly will be the
Yeah.
solution to overcoming all of these problems, health problems, poverty problems, all the pains that we see in the world. And it's simple, man. He says in the letters, he reiterates all of his teachings, and they're very deep. But I really appreciate them because he says heaven is a state of consciousness of unconditional love, and the only way we can get back there again is by entering into that state of consciousness that we had when we were very young, that state
Mhm.
of just authentic vulnerability. And so the reason I'm telling you all this, I don't always bring it up on all of our conversations, but I feel like you have a profound mission, and I just want to
Mhm.
I want to elevate that for you because I feel like sometimes it's easy to minimize like the importance that we have, but I know there are so many people living out there with pain. I've been one of them,
Yeah.
and I know other people. So I just want to encourage and give you whatever resources I can to help you on that journey.
Yeah, no, that I mean, look, I'll take it all day long. Because I do so what's been really interesting for me is, I feel like I'm on this path, but the path is revealing itself as I walk it.
Hmm.
So I say that with regards to, so I tried the pain coaching, then I've studied to become a pain coach. Then I've been running the business. And from there I've gone to the point where I know that this isn't just chronic pain, it's chronic illness. I believe that there's something united in that.
Hmm.
To now I'm at this point, and it's so funny, something you said like sparked this. I've got a phone call after we're done with somebody because I believe that what I'm supposed to be creating, and this is something that has come to me recently, is a collective, or the words collective and ecosystem have come to me,
Hmm.
which is I believe that there is something to be created that is a collective, that has multimodalities, or I'm not sure exactly what it is, in fact. Um, but I'm very, very interested in, hey, I don't know what's going to happen and what this path reveals next, but I do know that I am creating something. I believe that I am co-creating something, by the way, which is why this collective thing, it keeps coming to me, but I'm loving it at
Hmm.
the same time. It is incredible, and it's exciting, and I do think that we're in this like this amazing point in time where there's this great awakening that is just happening.
Yeah.
Like we are living it right now. And I'm really inspired to see what happens with that too.
Yeah.
Sounds like you are too.
Absolutely, man. And I think it's supposed to be fun too. I think that's the other thing is like coming in together in community, really, celebrating our unique gifts and journeys. I feel like there is the transcendence of some of these limited painful experiences, whether it's mental pain or emotional pain, physical pain,
Yep.
spiritual pain. Like we've all had pain as humans. And from an indigenous perspective, like my spirit name is Ondakin, and that was given to me from an Anishinaabe grandmother that passed a few years ago. And Aki means land, and you know one of the perspectives that you'll hear a lot of elders talk about is we are the land, and I feel like we collectively, because there was no separation of the land from us. If you think about even just scientifically, we ate cells to become more of what we are. But I think very spiritually, a lot of us who are more sensitively attuned, we feel pain, like we can either have empathy, but we're connected to her land, and she is a symbiotic being. And one of the things that Christ Letters talks about, how everything is consciousness, and how the mother aspect of consciousness, that he distinguishes between the father and the mother, and he could not teach this more than 2,000 years ago because the Jewish tradition sees women subordinately, so they would not have believed him, is what he says. But in the
Mhm.
letters, he clarifies that the mother, you could understand, the mother is the loving intelligence that is the nurturing, it's the bonding, and also the rejection. It protects the baby, it grows it, but it also keeps it safe. It is the it expresses as the magnetic impulses of physical evolution. And the father is all the will, it's the activity, the movement, but the mother is the form. And those two work interdependently for all the evolution, physical evolution. But why that's significant, I feel, Alex, is when we think of our bodies as an extension of the land, and we're doing our best to do our work to heal and align ourselves with the land, all those things you talk about stacking, whether it's like breath
Yeah.
work, connection, meditation, grounding, um, even doing like drumming and music,
Yep.
like all these things that we can do to feel good and to be of service to a greater awakening. We're also, I feel deeply about this. We're healing the land and we're planting seeds for an era that all of us yearn for, really. So yeah, man, whatever the collective initiatives that you're doing, I would love to invite you to our school community where Lightheart Vision is housed, because
Yeah.
school is a really excellent place of meeting a lot of people too. If you're not on that
Yeah.
platform, I would encourage you to
No,
check
I'm
that
I'm
too.
on the platform, but I was going to ask you. So yes, I'd love to be involved in whatever you're doing. I want to come up to Ottawa. I want to come and see what you're doing. Can I
Sounds
do
great.
that?
Yeah, we can put together. I learned this term on school. I thought all of this was in real life, but what we're doing now apparently is not. So they call them IRLs, in-person real life events. I'd love to have you as a guest speaker. We can plan something
Yeah.
and bring together a community. And yeah, like I really feel like a lot of people are living in quiet desperation. They don't want to. I think this is true probably more for men. There's a lot of men who are living with pain, and they don't like
Yeah.
talking about it because it's something we think we want to shoulder and stuff. I know everyone kind of experiences this in different ways, but I think in particular it's more poignant with men because we're conditioned from a
Yeah.
young age, right? It's like
Yep.
walk it
Yep.
off, deal with it, suck it up, and all these things. And yeah, there's some other beautiful resources. There's communities I'd like to connect you with, like the Mankind Project, I think would be something.
Yep.
Also, Dr. Sue Morter's work would be really interesting for you to explore because
Okay.
she teaches, she had a profound awakening 25 years ago, and she teaches from a very high place yoga, but from her direct experience of having experienced enlightenment. She teaches like the central channel breath and how to build more biophotonic density in the body. And yeah, there's a number of things. There's also a medicine man. He introduced me to a plant that might be interesting for you. It's called the Cree people call it Pipsisiwa. And in English, it's called prince's pine, like a prince's pine.
Yep.
And it is a low growing evergreen. The thing is, it has to be properly harvested. It cannot. Pharmaceutical companies are aware of this plant, but it is for dealing with chronic pain. He spoke something is it blocks the coax to. I'm out of my expertise here, but it blocks a certain pain receptor of the body,
Okay.
and he said it wasn't CRPS, but it was another thing that is told to people that it is untreatable. They cannot synthesize it, they can't replicate it, and they can't farm it. So from a from a profit perspective, it doesn't exist, but it
Yeah.
does exist out there. And so that his name, he has a blog called The Creator's Garden. I've been meaning to reach out to him too. His name's Joseph Pitawanakwat, and he is an amazing educator that he bridges the gap between um, scientific understandings of plant medicines, Western science, and indigenous knowledge of them, like their root etymology. So he talks about like the chemical things that are happening in the body, but then he talks about the teachings and what these plant helpers are meant to do. And I've learned a lot of even just a brief period of time from him. So there's a few things that I would
Hmm.
love to share more with you. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're welcome to join our community. We can keep the dialogue happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, I would encourage you to share your voice within our community, and I'm happy to share your mission because it sounds like you're just like you said, you're beginning and you're just tapping into like some bigger pieces
Yeah.
of the puzzle, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, you just said it again a minute ago. So far as I'm concerned, when I'm talking about pain, And then I've started talking to somebody about whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. Um, you know, it's all pain.
Yeah.
Like I understand how it manifests, but actually, a lot of how we can manage it is exactly the same.
Hmm.
And so there's some really, really interesting things. And I agree again, there are a lot of men that are dealing with pain quietly and alone. And I think this has got a lot to do with why suicide rates are the way they are and everything else.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
look, there's so much we can do. And yeah, I am just figuring some of this out. It's sort of still unfolding. But what I have found is, and this is maybe a big message for everyone, is community is really cool. The reason I love having conversations like this is every time I finish a conversation, I scribble down, I got multiple resources here.
Hmm.
I've met another guy. I know from you, I'm going to meet another three or four, and it's amazing. It sort of it's connecting me to a world that 5 years ago I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And you know what I find so interesting too, that some of the synergies of your background, Alex, is because, I know from a marketing perspective, I've had to do the like entrepreneurship backwards. Like my first part of my journey was so focused on my own like spiritual awakening and being of service, and I've had to
Yep,
learn, and it's been, I gotta say, painful to learn all the things that I didn't know anything about with respect to entrepreneurship. But I
yep,
know I know a little bit, and I know that marketers and advertisers will talk about how you have to really push into the pain, to lead someone to a sale. So I feel like it's interesting how you come from that world and you
yep.
understand that well, and but I mean literally helping people with pain and coming out the other end, and giving them, like you said before we even talked, giving them hope, giving them this a higher vision of what's possible, that
Yep.
they can get over this and at least minimize it. And I do agree with you. I think all of these things can be healed, and that there is a purpose behind so many of these challenges that we encounter on our
Yeah.
work in our walk here on Earth. So
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm like shocked at how quickly time goes as
I
well.
know.
So,
Yeah, it's been a really beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you having the vulnerability and courage to share your story and also your presence, Alex. We don't always acknowledge the unique presence that we have in life, but I can see your passion and I can see your eagerness to help others. And I appreciate you wanting to share your book whenever it is ready. If you ever want to come back on the show,
oh yeah.
and share it, or access our community and promote your word, I'm happy to help share that with folks.
Yeah.
And any
No,
of the connections
fantastic.
that I can help you make, I'm happy to as well.
No, awesome. Yeah, my book is it's actually done. It's
Oh,
going up on my website, Reframing Pain, in just a couple of days. So
oh,
anybody that
amazing.
comes there, I'll pop it out. So yeah,
Perfect.
reframingpain.com.
Okay.
Very easy.
That's beautiful. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. And yeah, well, I always love asking this to our inspired speakers and guests here on the show, Alex. If you had a megaphone that you could share with the whole world, one profound message, and everyone could hear you, what would you like to share?
I think it's something that we've already touched on. What I mean, I haven't just openly said it though, which is listen to the messages. Listen to
Mm,
the messages that you're receiving because I now know that through my life, I have been getting these messages and I've sort of ignored them. Well, I have ignored them. And now, when I sort of surrender, where
mm,
I just let that river take me
mm,
and I see where it goes, these incredible things happen. I
beautiful.
literally say no to almost nothing now. So listen to the messages. Listen to the messages. Like there's something really amazing happening.
Yeah,
Just
I love
listen
that.
to the messages. Quieten down and listen. What's the pain telling you? Or, when a plan gets canceled, what are you being told?
Mm,
What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's a profound reminder of our relationship with that divine intelligence that you talked about. I do feel like there is a universal loving intelligence that is conspiring for all of us. And I love your message of listen to the messages. it's just so simple, profound. It can reach the heart of a child, and it's what the grown-ups most need to hear
Yeah.
too. So yeah, I really appreciate you and your work, Alex. Thanks very much for coming on our show. And to all our listeners out there, stay tuned. We have an exciting lineup coming up of inspired speakers. Please go check out Alex's work, and we're excited to receive your book as well, Alex. And without any further ado, I'd love to invite our daughter Luciana to sign us off for the day. And so, blessings to you and your family and all those you touch, Alex, as well as to all of our listeners. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again soon.
Blessings to you.
Thank you.
The moon is right, the spirit's up. We're here tonight, and that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. The party's on, the feeling's here.
We wish you a
Have a new year. Have a new year.
Happy New Year! Can you say Merry Christmas, everybody?
Yeah.
Say it.
Have a new year. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Love you.
I love you.
We wish you a